Hi, everyone. Hello. Good afternoon. Welcome to today's event, Conversations on Collectings, Transformational Legacies. And I feel like time really flies. It feels like the last talk was just like a couple of weeks ago. And I remember we're in the same room and we're sort of roasted in the sun. And today's rainy day is a clear reminder that fall has arrived. And I'm not sure if I'm ready for it yet. My name is Lin Chen. I'm the program coordinator at the Vancouver Art Gallery. As we begin, I would like to acknowledge that we are gathered on the unceded homeland of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh people, whose histories and cultures continue to shape this place. As a Taiwanese immigrant and a settler of color, I recognize my responsibilities within a colonial institutions and remain committed to learning from the original stewards on this land, approaching my work with care and respect. Today's event is part of the Griffin Art Project 10th Anniversary Speaker Series, presenting in collaborations with the Contemporary Art Society of Vancouver and the Vancouver Art Gallery. This series brings together collectors, artists, and curators to reflect on the impact of collecting. And today we open the conversations on transformational legacy. We're here to explore the stories and passions that nurtures our arts community and how collecting itself become a legacy. Gifts like these sparks curiosity in today's generations and the next, leaving a lasting mark on our cultural landscape. In today's program, we are very honored to feature wonderful panelists. We have Claudia Beck, Brigitte and Henning Freybe, and Anouchka Freybe join us in conversation with Eva Respini, the gallery's interim co-CEO and curator at large. The discussion will run about an hour and 15 minutes, followed by a 15-minute Q&A, and then a reception next door. Thank you for being here. I will now pass the mic to Terry, the president and the board chair of Contemporary Art Society of Vancouver, to say a few words. Over to you, Terry.
Welcome, everyone, and thank you all for being here today. To begin, I would like to express my sincere appreciation to Lisa Baldassara, the director of Griffin Art Projects, for inviting the Contemporary Art Society of Vancouver to collaborate on the Conversations on Collecting series, which is part of Griffin's broader initiative, The Collectors, an inspiring program celebrating Griffin Art's 10th anniversary. We're very honored to mark this milestone with Griffin and the vibrant art community that surrounds it. I'd also like to express my gratitude to Lin Chen and the Vancouver Art Gallery for support and for generously hosting the series here at the gallery. Thank you as well to Eva Respini, the co-CEO of Vancouver Art Gallery and curator at large, for moderating today's discussion. At the core of the shared connection between Griffin Art Projects, CASV, and the Vancouver Art Gallery are Brigitte and Henning Freybe. Their extensive contributions in support of the arts form a meaningful link between our three organizations. As co-founders of CASV and founders of Griffin Art Projects, the Freybes have played a pivotal role in shaping Vancouver's cultural landscape. In addition, their generous gift to the Vancouver Art Gallery is currently showcased in Postcards from the Heart, selections from the Brigitte and Henning Freybe collection. This collaboration holds special significance for the Contemporary Art Society of Vancouver. Founded in 1977, CASV is a member-based charity with a long history, actually of nearly 50 years now, dedicated to advancing the understanding and appreciation of contemporary art. Since our recent relaunch, following a brief pause, we've renewed our commitment to forwarding art literacy and enriching the artistic journey of our members by actively engaging with artists, galleries, museums, and more. In conclusion, today's esteemed panelists have, through their expansive vision and generosity, all profoundly impact the arts ecosystem here and abroad. And we look forward to hearing their insights into the vital role of philanthropy in the art realm. So thank you, and I will now pass the floor over to Lisa Baldassara, Director of Griffin Art Projects.
Thank you so much, Terry. We're delighted to be working in collaboration with Contemporary Art Society Vancouver and in partnership with the Vancouver Art Gallery to present the 10th anniversary series edition of Griffin's Conversations on Collecting. This has truly been a team effort. I'd like to offer a very special thanks to Terry Jenkins-Brissell, the president and board that you've just heard from of Contemporary Art Society Vancouver, and to Lynn Chen, who's both a member of CASV and program coordinator here at the VAG, and who have been incredible collaborators and partners in the production of this special series. Thank you, Terry, for your enthusiasm, dedication, and support of this project, and to your CASV membership for their support, and to Lynn for her tireless behind-the-scenes work at each event to ensure that panels have unfolded with such extraordinary professionalism and care. Thank you both. For their generous sponsorship of our 10th anniversary program, we would like to extend our sincere thanks to Asura Insurance and Farzina Caladon, along with Bravo Art Projects and the Hamber Foundation, Michael and Inno O'Brien Family Foundation, and Griffin's funders, North Vancouver Recreation and Culture, and the Freybe Foundation. Thanks are also due to friends of Christos Dikiakos, who have assisted in the presentation of the second chapter of our anniversary exhibition, Christos Dikiakos The Collectors, which features more than 30 portraits of collectors in their natural habitats and is now on at Griffin until December 14th. I also want to mention that we do have books for sale that are outside. So on your way out, these books represent just a tip of the iceberg in terms of these gifts, if you want to have a bit of a memento of today's talk. The Conversations on Collecting series addresses Griffin's core mandate, which is to share private collections with the public, and provides opportunities to meet collectors in person and to think of this very unique, may I say even obsessive activity that often takes place behind the scenes, and to share knowledge about the nuances of collecting. Today's panel event, Conversations on Collecting Transformational Legacies, is presented, as we've just heard, at this very special juncture for both Griffin and the VAG, as we come to the close of the exhibition Postcards from the Heart, beautifully curated by Eva Respini. This shares this transformational gift, as you know, and today's an opportunity to celebrate this extraordinary gift once again. Today's panel focuses on how planned gifts create institutional and community legacies, and features Henning, Brigitte, Anouchka, and Claudia, who, along with her husband, the late Andrew Gruft, made a transformational gift of 400 contemporary and historical photographs in 2004, which Beck has continued to build on. The panel is intended to be an informal sharing of their experiences as collectors, offering insights into what goes into the kind of long-term legacy planning that has resulted in consequential gifts they have given to both the Vancouver Art Gallery and arts organizations across the country. The panel gives us the opportunity to reflect on the effects of private collections on the public through such philanthropy and donation. Long-term legacy giving is not a common topic of discussion, yet it is years in the making and results in the building of public collections of depth and breadth, something that cannot be achieved by museums alone. And Anouchka Freybe will also discuss her founding of a further philanthropic project, the Similkameen Artist Residency, and the impacts on artistic legacies of such projects. To Claudia and the Freybe family, we thank you for your tremendous generosity, providing inspiring examples of what constitutes a transformational legacy. These consequential gifts change the course of an institution's collecting trajectory and the cultural legacy of a community, by providing the public with the experience of significant works, often not possible for a museum to acquire for their communities without support, that are then held in trust for future generations. The Transformational Legacies panel brings these extraordinary philanthropists together to discuss the infrastructure of collections and support structures provided by their work, and how resiliency can be fostered within the art scene through future planning. Do you think we're going to cover it all? We'll see how it goes. It's now my pleasure to introduce our moderator, Eva Respini, the interim co-CEO and curator at large at the Vancouver Art Gallery. Eva has served as curator and co-commissioner for the 2022 U.S. Pavilion's presentation of Simone Leigh at the 59th International Art Exhibition of the Venice Biennale. Leigh won the 2022 Golden Lion for her participation. Eva also organized the highly successful mid-career survey of Simone Leigh's work, which opened at the ICA Boston in April 2023 and is touring throughout the United States. Between 2015 and 2023, Respini was Deputy Director and Barbara Lee Chief Curator at the Institute of Contemporary Art Boston, and prior to that tenure served as the Curator of the Museum of Modern Art for more than a decade in the Department of Photography, where she curated numerous acclaimed exhibitions of contemporary art and photography. Her curatorial leadership and commitment to curatorial craft at every level of exhibition making is evident in all her curatorial projects. She's been a visiting lecturer, critic, and speaker at a number of universities, including at Harvard University's Graduate School of Design. Thank you so much, Eva, for leading the discussion today.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Terry. Thank you all for coming. A warm welcome. It is a bit warm in here. If anyone wants to have the fan on, perhaps, yes, I'm hearing a yes. We'll put it on. Thank you for coming. The spirit of collaboration in this room is palpable, and it's wonderful to have three organizations coming together for this talk. And I feel very honored to be on this stage with friends and colleagues. Curators and collectors, I think, have a special relationship. Many of you may know that the word curator comes from the Latin to care. And that is because as curators, we typically care for a collection, as we do here at the Vancouver Art Gallery. There are quite a few curators in the audience here, from past curators at the VAG, current curators from various of our sister organizations, and there are quite a few collectors in the audience as well. And the reason why I say we have a special bond is collectors typically, especially the obsessive ones like we have here on the stage, and I mean that in a good way, care as much about art as curators do. Like us, collectors trot around the globe to see as much art as possible. They go to great lengths to learn, as do curators, but we do it as our day jobs. Collectors, on the other hand, the best ones, the most obsessive ones, do it for a passion and do it for love. And do it because they must. And then in my experience, collectors develop a relationship with artworks that's very unique and very different than curators, because they live with their artworks. They go to sleep, they wake up, they see a work at all times of day, and I have heard from many collectors, including some on the stage today, that their artworks become like family. So in the case of the collectors here today, what's most moving to me in terms of their passion for art is they don't just collect for themselves. They see themselves as stewards, as you heard from Lisa. Eventually, the gift of these works to public institutions, and both Claudia and her husband Andrew and Brigitte and Henning have made major gifts to the Vancouver Art Gallery so that these artworks can be enjoyed by Vancouverites and British Columbians for generations to come. They believe that art is meant to be shared, not possessed. And so to me, as a curator, as someone who is tasked to care for collections and to care for art, I just wanted to say thank you. Thank you for that care that you have shown in your collections and in gifting those collections to us here in Vancouver. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to each of the speakers. We're going to have, I think, about 15 minutes for each. I'm going to do a short intro. We're going to start with Claudia Beck. You have a great program, so I'm not going to read the bio. I won't, because they're long. There's lots of accolades, but I'm going to give a short story about how we first met, Claudia. I think I'd been on the job 2 weeks. New to Vancouver, new to Canada, and my lovely assistant Eileen came and said, "There's a Claudia Beck here to see you." No appointment. She's across the street, wants to have a coffee. I said, okay, great. So of course I knew who Claudia was because, as has been said, Claudia and Andrew have made a major gift of their collection to the Vancouver Art Gallery. This is the catalog that accompanied the exhibition. You can buy it on your way out. And I had been studying this catalog before I took the job. That was my work, to study the collection. So of course I knew who Claudia was, and as a curator of photography at MoMA for over a decade, I was very familiar with the depth and the excellence of the artists that Claudia and Andrew had collected. And when we met Claudia, I don't know if you remember this, what you really wanted to know is you wanted to show me a Cindy Sherman photograph that you were considering acquiring, because you knew that I had curated a major Cindy Sherman retrospective at MoMA, so you'd done your homework on me. You really wanted to know my opinion, and you were testing me. You know, what do you think of this work? I said, it's a great work, and you should buy it.
Looked like me, the big mouth.
Anyway, that story is by way of introduction to say something about Claudia. Astute, direct, always looking at art critically, always challenging herself and those around her, and it was a pleasure to meet you that way, Claudia. So now over to you.
Thank you very much, Ava. And I would also like to stand up, because I'm bloody short, and acknowledge all the collectors that I know here. Marla Keese, the Nemptons, Andrew Vancouver Art Blog, Michael Plaut and Leonardo Laura, Jane Irwin, and I can remember, and Ross Hill, Helga and Robert, you did? Helga and Robert Klein, and then going all the way back, there is Bruce Wright, and then I saw Kathy Busby. If I forgot any of you, you can yell at me at the end. Anyway, thank you all for coming, and I think it's important that we acknowledge who we are here. So now I'm going to get into it. I timed myself at 10 minutes, cut me off. Okay, today I'd like to start with my homage to my late husband, Andrew Gruft. 50 years ago, I told him I wanted to open a gallery devoted to photographs. He probably said, "What, are you mad?" Then he went on, "Go ahead, let's see how long you last." Nova Gallery was a really tiny space on 4th Avenue. Helga Pakasar worked with me, and we lasted 5 years. Andrew arranged these weird plexiglass hanging system, which was awful for her and I to figure out every 3 or 4 weeks how we were gonna mount the next show. We lasted until 1982. As Gruft said, we showed everything from Fox Talbot to Jeff Wall. And I wish to say here, big kudos for the moral support we got in those early years to Helga, Roy Arden, Joanne Burney Dansker, Ian Wallace, Marion Penner Bancroft, Evan Lee, and Jeff Wall. And it was true, we were pioneers. I tried to figure out this afternoon how many of us were there in the mid-70s. Maybe there were a dozen of us, I can't remember, and we were in the United States, Canada, and in Great Britain, and some in the rest of Europe. We were dealers. That is, we had to sell work in order to keep the doors open, or most of us had to. We were not gallerists. Which is the new term because you place everything. And that's fine. The only person that I knew when did I meet her? Virginia Zabriskie opened a gallery in the mid-50s, and she insisted on calling herself a gallerist. Anyway, all this is to say we did not start out to think of ourselves as collectors. After Nova, we regrouped and continued our obsessions, and I really think that's a good word, forget the passion, obsessions and fascinations with photographs, hunting and acquiring them. And certainly we ended up with a lot of them. What the screen is showing you is where we live. We lived I still live. We live in a very old house, 110 years old, and it was divided during the Second World War into 6 small, I forgot Dennis Waltz. Anyway, the collector. Anyway, and then, anyway, that's where we lived. It was divided into 6 separate apartments, and we never put it back into a single family home. 1, because of money, 2, because of time, and 3, because the city of Vancouver makes it very difficult to do anything if you want to do anything architecturally interesting. So somewhere in all this is a photograph of me with a tiara of barrel cactus thorns and Andrew on a mountain. And I used that as a way of talking about that Andrew and I had very broad Catholic tastes in everything. So we were as happy in the mountains, hiking and climbing, or in the desert, as we were walking on big city streets, looking at art, looking at architecture, and eating well and seeing friends. So what the photographs will show, I hope, for the most part, not the Wilhelm, because I got that after him, was that Andrew really liked classic photographs. I did too, but that was really his passion, and that was what was available. That's the one that kind of looks like me. So he would often, I think now, Helga can correct me, I think he gravitated towards pictures of historical conflicts, certain moments of compassionate gestures. Obviously, as an architect and as a professor of architecture at UBC, he liked images with architecture in it, and he collected architectural drawings. And I do love these works, and there's a couple that the Vancouver Art Gallery have that I wish I hadn't given them. Tina Modotti, why? Because it's a brilliant Tina Modotti, 1927, and the only other one in the world exists at the Met. So I'm not sure I gave it to them. Anyway, I like to think that along with doing what we were doing, I encouraged us to look at more contemporary work from here. People like Stephen Waddell, Scott McFarland, Owen Kidd, Evan Lee, other work by Marion Penner Bancroft. So Andrew and I, because Brigitte and I have talked, did we agree, and I kind of lied. Andrew and I were in constant talking, debating, and arguing, often quite loudly, about all the ways photo pictures exist. The real thing is that they exist in many, many ways. And what I did, that's a Christina Mackey. So even though I'm saying we argued a lot about what was this, what was that, oh yeah, I had a flood. Even though we argued, we would compromise in the sense of he didn't like it, I liked it, we'd get it. I didn't like it, he liked it, we'd get it. So there was that kind of weird level of compromise. And what I haven't said before I get to what I think is my last point is that there I am. Oh, look at how young I was. Holy moly. Anyway, I'm in my 80s. So anyway, take a deep breath. Okay, so I encouraged us, besides looking at other things, I decided, and especially after Andrew's death, I decided that I wanted to go big. So I have a big Jeff Wall, black and white. I like Jeff Wall's black and whites because he has great printers. I did the Cindy Shermans because they were works that I could actually fit in my house. I did a Conley, big, giant penny bowl. What else did I do? Voice of Things that was at the Griffin, which was Roy Arden, quite old, kind of hanging assemblage of junk. So, huh? What? Oh, yes, yes, okay. So, and somebody else, but we'll go over that later. So, back to Nova and why we did it was that we really wanted people in Vancouver to see what photography was as a modern medium for at least the first 100 years. That's what we did, and then we carried on. So I'm losing my place even though I've written it down. However, we also knew that there was a history here, that there was Dali and Maynard in the middle of the 19th century, Matty Gunterman at the end of the 19th century and into the first part of the 20th century, John Vanderpant, where most of that work went to the National Gallery of Canada, was here in the 30s and did really brilliant work. And then in the 60s here, you had conceptual art, and I think Mr. Wong is back there, so he knows about that. And then there was the very unusual ideas about photograph that could be represented in the 70s by the likes of Ian Wallace and Jeff Wall. First of all, it was color. Then it was very large, and in the case of Wall, it was cinematic setups and orchestration. So in 2004, Andrew and I decided on the basis of that kind of history that we could give that part of the collection, or the collection at that moment, to the Vancouver Art Gallery in the hopes that it could be seen as an historical context for the continuing groundbreaking work done here since the 1970s. Finally, my last point. I'm sorry I get nervous about these things. I can talk ad lib forever. That's a problem. Okay, so I'm leaving my last, what I consider, my opinion, my most important point at this moment. Collectors, we're individuals, and I think we become significant when we give our collections to the public. I think that the collection is what's important. You all may know collectors and think they're really great, but you know, pretty soon I'm going to be burned, and which has nothing to do with anything. But public collections mean, if you don't know me or the Freybes or Anouchka, you basically, and you don't come to our homes, once a collection becomes public, there's a chance for lots and lots of people to see it. And I also believe that parenthetically, not everyone is from here. Michael O'Dane with his own museum, Mr. Rennie, brilliant collections with his Once in Chinatown space. They're not Eli Broad in LA, they're not the de Menils in Houston or Dia, they're not the Perez in Florida, they're not the Frick or the Modern in Manhattan, or where's the Ludwig? Or did they give it in Berlin? He didn't build his own building, did he? No, okay, well, it was somebody else I was thinking of. Anyway, that's just to name a few where people had so much money and such big collections that they could actually endow and run a private but public place for you to go and look at the art. So back to my point, such collections as ours, I believe, enhance this public institution and create platforms for education and research. And I also believe that such legacies can encourage future generations, especially here in Vancouver. And I actually worry about that. I lose sleep anyway. But we need to be able to start to build a history of cultural support, especially in the visual arts in Vancouver. So when I go to Montreal and Toronto, the people that I know there who have donated money and collections, they believe it's their responsibility to the place that they live. And I want the same thing for us. So I want all of us, I mean, I'm so old, but anyway, the next generation and the next generation and the next generation to assume those responsibilities for what I would consider our cultural health. And I have nothing else to say. Goodbye.
Thank you, Claudia, for that presentation. You were on time, and I really appreciate that that impassioned speech, I would say, especially at the end, regarding stewardship and cultural responsibility and civic responsibility. That obviously resonates well with me. Yes? Use your mic.
We know the Barthian punctum, and that was one thing I learned from Brigitte Freybe, and from Andrew, was collections are really personal, and therefore what you go after is, even though I'm an art historian, kind of, that's not what you're looking for. You're looking for something very, very different, and that's the end. Bye.
Well, actually, that's a good segue to a question I have for you, and I think maybe we have time for one or two questions before we go on to the next. But you said something about the reason you gave the collection, you and Andrew gave the collection to the Vancouver Art Gallery, is because you felt that it gave historical context. So the way you were thinking about the collection actually is art historically. You felt that there was a lack here, that it could teach something about photography, our public, something about photography. So I'm curious, as a collector, at what point did you realize, or at what point did you start saying to yourselves, you know what, this has art historical significance, and this will do something for Vancouverites and British Columbians? Was there a moment when you and Andrew started thinking that way and collecting that way?
Am I on, Kagi? Okay, that's a really good question, and I'm not sure that I have a very good answer. It kind of grew, and I think it was actually seeing all these other people do it, and I'm not Helga. I am not being overly modest. I'm saying is we were small collectors, and what we got were certain kinds of things. We weren't the Walter family. We weren't any of those kinds of big deal collectors.
But you made a difference regardless.
Well, we tried, but it was with the, I mean, somebody like, he's not here, but Grant Arnold was very encouraging, a curator here. I don't know that I think it grew slowly, and I think it was encouraged by the Vancouver Art Gallery to think about the possibilities. And once they thought it might be interesting, we thought, yeah, well, that would be a way to think about it. But I can't answer your question in a precise way.
Okay. Maybe I'll ask you one more question before we go on. You mentioned a lot of artists, and you mentioned your personal relationships with a number of artists who live here. How important was it for you to be in conversation with those artists? Did they influence your collecting? What did you learn from them?
I learned, it sounds funny as an older woman to say this, but I think I learned from 3 people a lot about working with artists. First was because of Helga, who worked at Nova Gallery with me. And she was very, very connected to artists and artist sensibilities. Secondly, Jeff Wall was a big challenge, but what became interesting was the conversations you could have with him about the fact that one of the biggest things that I think I added to our collection were a lot of Robert Franks. And he understood Robert Frank and Walker Evans. That's not what he wanted to do, but I started to get that. And then there was Helga and Roy Arden. Roy Arden had the most imaginative mind, in my opinion, about what art could or could not be. And so he and I have had, and Helga separately, we've had ongoing conversations. That's all I can say.
Thank you. So I think we'll have time for more questions, but we'll go on in our presentations. So next up, we have Brigitte and Henning Freybe. Again, you can read about them in your program. I will also start with a story about how I first met them. I think I had lived here for 2 months, and you hosted a very nice breakfast at your home. And I had heard that the Freybes were amongst the best collectors of modern and contemporary art in Vancouver, and they had a world-class museum collection, and that I would be very impressed to see their collection. So naturally, I thought, great, can't wait to go over there. But you know, I was a curator in New York. I've seen a lot of good collections. So we'll see. That's what I thought privately. I didn't tell anyone. And I have to say, from the moment that I entered your home, and not only did I see the quality of your collection, but the passion and the love that you have for the work that you have lived with and stewarded for almost 5 decades, was just blew me away. And truly, I had never seen something like that. I've seen many, many good collections all over the world. And then I understood how special not only the collection is, but how special you are as collectors. And I have to say, I feel deeply moved that you have given your collection to the Vancouver Art Gallery. This has been many years of conversations. I stand on the shoulders of curators and directors who have come before me that have started this conversation and stewarded this conversation with both of you. But it is very meaningful that from that first moment we met, that then I was able to install a selection of those works here. And if some of you haven't yet seen the show, you have about a week left. It's on view on the second floor. And it's just the tip of the iceberg. So, by way of introduction, that's how we met. You won't be giving a presentation today. Instead, I'll be asking you questions. And just by the way, we do have a brochure for the exhibition, which is outside there for the taking, where I did do an interview already with Brigitte and Henning. So please make sure to take it on your way out. I'll try not to ask the same questions. But maybe I'll start with the first one, which I have already asked you, but I think it's a good way to enter the conversation. Yes?
Actually, let me make a statement at this point, even though I didn't intend to. The title for today, I find it very appropriate, transformational. Transformational?
He has a mic.
I have a mic here.
Maybe we can just turn it up.
Can you hear me in the back? Bruce, yeah? Okay. There. Having said that, my life was transformed when I met Brigitte, and when that was in the very early 70s, when she said, I want to buy this big piece of art. I said, pardon me? And then I saw the price, and then I said, pardon me again. So my life, from a business point of view, you know, I might have gone to Maynard's auction to buy something, but buying contemporary art, strange art, was something that was new to me. So the passion that Brigitte brought to the marriage, the passion for art, I learned from her. I still don't have quite the passion she has, but I do have an awful lot of appreciation for the things that she has wanted to live with, the latest being what looks like a black rubber tire on a little pallet. And who would buy a rubber tire and put it into the living room? By the way, the tire is made out of marble, cast somewhere in Ireland and put together somewhere in Italy. But she wanted that, and it took me a while, but I'm now okay with the rubber tire in our living room. So the transformation started with her.
Well, he's lucky.
Yes, I am.
I'm lucky. I'm lucky to have someone who responds to me. I'm a graphic designer by trade. I worked for Radio Canada and for BBC in a children's show. And I have a different view onto art because graphic design is very strict and very not very artistic. It's not easy to live with me. I have great visions. And we have one rule. If one of us doesn't want it, it's a no-go.
Unlike you, Claudia.
That would never fly if one of us says no. He took me away from a gorgeous Gerhard Richter, from many good artists, because he said they were expensive. I didn't find art expensive. I never think that art is expensive. Even so, $100,000 is a lot of money. But we didn't buy many art for $100,000. It's a moment of disaster happened 5 months ago when we bought a Portuguese artist, which I fell in love with. It is done out of strings and leather parts. It's, what's her name?
Autunis?
Autunis. Leonor Autunis. She reminded me so much of Eva Hesse, which I met as she was newly married in Essen at a party. And I was introduced to her drawings.
That was in the mid-60s.
60s. And I did not understand it. I thought, what eyes did I have that I didn't realize that that was a new way of thinking of art? Well, and forever it punished me. And that piece reminded me of Eva Hesse. And I just said to the dealer, I buy it. I didn't say it to him. And it was 4 weeks of upside-down marriage. Until Eva said, oh, you have a Leonor Autunis? Bring it. And then I said, look, the gallery wants it.
So did I break up the marriage or did I convene the marriage?
And it's downstairs now.
It's on view now, yes. It's a great piece.
I wanted to say that I know many of you here, and I'm very thankful that you come to listen to me. Bruce helped me in the beginning with many art pieces to get. He talked to the dealers. Helga helped me a great deal in hanging and being a true friend. I cannot go on because I will forget someone. It's a wonderful and not selbstverständlich, not
automatic.
Not automatic time with friends, which I have. I'm absolutely pleased that you are all here to listen to my unorthodox speech. But art itself, to us, has no asset function. It's a thing which we have to give away. We knew that from the first moment. The first time we bought that Frank Stella, I said, Henning, that goes to the Vancouver Art Gallery. And it went in the year 2000 by Ron Longstaff, who collected from collectors a piece. It went already to the gallery. But we have the agreement that we can hang it as long as we want it. So is it with the donation we have given? It says already Vancouver Art Gallery, but we can hold it until we die or we give it beforehand.
Okay. Back to Eva.
No, we could listen to you forever. I want to prompt you, though, because we heard a little bit about how Claudia and Andrew made decisions as a couple. We've heard about how you've made decisions as a couple. When did you start thinking of yourself as collectors?
Or maybe when we founded the Griffin.
So that was just a decade ago.
10 years ago.
10 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were not collectors. We just had a lot of stuff.
No, we all thought that.
Yeah.
I don't think Mr. Rennie nor Mr. O'Dane exactly thought that.
Yeah.
They were more focused.
Well, maybe I'll also ask you the same question I asked Claudia, which is about artists. So the title of the exhibition on view downstairs, Postcards from the Heart, comes from, for those of you who've had the privilege of being at the Freybe home, when you come in the front door, there's a small powder room. And in that powder room, floor to ceiling are notes and postcards from artists and curators and directors who have been hosted by the Freybes in their home, as well as snapshots and other ephemera, thanking them for their hospitality. And so clearly that was very much a part of what it meant for you to collect art, that it was personal, it was about these personal relationships. My favorite is a Polaroid of Brigitte with Robert Rauschenberg, I think from the 80s. But I'd love to hear a little bit more from you about your relationship with artists, why it was important for you to meet them, host them, and what you learned from them.
I have a great admiration for artists, which I can't put in words. I cannot talk freely to artists because I admire them so much that I can't find the right beginning or the middle or the end in talking to an artist. It's very difficult for me, with the exception of a few artists like Ian Wallace, which are very well known to me, or I forget someone which... Gordon Smith. I had difficulties speaking to an artist. I took my gratitude, my admiration to them with a piece I bought from them. That was the go-between me and the artist. In private, when I look at it, I talk to the artist. I talk to my art, by the way. I talk to the artist when I look at the piece that's from them. But I'm hesitant to come too close to an artist. I think I'm not worth it.
One thing that I think is quite remarkable is how you live with your art. So back to the story of when I first went to your home, it's a large home that is built quite literally for the display of art. It looks like an art gallery. It's extremely well lit, well hung. You know, all of the considerations that we think about in the art gallery are considered in your home. And in fact, your living quarters are quite modest, if I would say, because the home is really given over to the art. Can you tell us a little bit about what that was like and why you made those kinds of decisions to essentially build a gallery for your collection?
I can make a brief statement in that direction where I would have said, you know, we've got a few things in storage. Why don't we put these together on the wall and fill up the space? And she would say, no, you cannot do that. That piece cannot be next to that one. They don't talk to each other. You have to leave space. You have to let the art breathe. You have to, and I said, no, you don't. So that was one of the many disagreements. So we have quite a bit in storage because she respects pieces too much that she will allow me to crowd and possibly confuse things. So she actually is a curator at heart and respects the artists and what they've done, and I've learned to respect what she does. So it's been exciting.
Well, I do also remember when I hung the show here and I invited you to come and take a look before the opening. I was quite nervous. I didn't know what you would think about how I had hung your works. And if I may reveal that you were quite emotional, especially you, Brigitte, could you just talk a little bit about how the work looked to you? What, if anything, changed seeing it hung here at the gallery in a different way than you have hung it in your home?
It's very simple. It looks better here than in our home. Because she did it by theme, like what is on the picture right now. Left is the Jeff Wall, the Tara Donovan, and the Stella. They all have things in common, all with a line. She thought very strictly what they have in common, the pieces. We have to consider the wall space for the size. She doesn't. That room here is brilliant too. It shows the power of the negative of the help me, of the intricate world situation that does not well, what is it? I have a breakdown in my mind. Not the courage to be. That piece here, the Frank Zeller, or the Pentridge, is about the flight, the refugees. The Boltanski is about the German situation. The other one with the lights is about the power of individuals who are confronted by policies, by have to make their intentions public instead of being the public acknowledging their work. They neglected.
Okay.
Eva put everything in the right angle. How the things connected to each other, that we can't do in our house.
Yeah. We're okay.
So one of the things about your collection is it really spans, it's really the post-war period. It spans quite a few decades, and from the immediate post-war period with American artists such as Rauschenberg, which is what we just looked at, to someone like Tacita Dean, contemporary artists, British artists working in Berlin. One of the things that you said to me, I remember early on, and I think Lisa mentioned this as well, is that you were very intentionally collecting European and American art, and specifically European art that you didn't think the Vancouver Art Gallery was buying or had the opportunity to buy. Yeah. Can you tell us more about that?
You go.
So back in the early 80s, that's exactly what Brigitte said. Vancouver will never be able to afford and will look for money to buy European art. Why don't we do that? So we as a family felt an amazing appreciation for having lived in Greater Vancouver since the mid-50s, and what the opportunity that this country gave us as immigrants, we felt this obligation almost to give something back. The fact that it might one day be that significant as a gift, that we never saw in those days. But the opportunity of giving back, again, buying and then gifting European art where we knew Vancouverites would not be able to appreciate that art otherwise. So again, since 1980 on, that was Brigitte's idea, and being a good husband, I was okay with it. I never thought that far ahead. She did. She felt it would be an amazing gift one day.
And indeed it has been. I mean, one of the things that really, to me, is quite surprising about the collection, that you have a depth, for example, of Arte Povera, or the post-war Italian artists. It's not often that you see that work in North America, let alone Canada. And so the ways in which you've really thought about the opportunity for those works to be seen. And I am reminded in Vancouver, there are not a lot of opportunities to see works of those kind of historical caliber. So it really is a true gift that not only you collected them, because these are not easy works to live with, just to say. Some of these works include masses of toothpicks. There's one work that requires milk to be poured into it on a daily basis. There's one work that requires a freezing element. So that the way in which you really embrace this notion of collecting post-war European art that wouldn't be otherwise seen in Vancouver is really one that I respect, and is a testament to you both.
It's important for me to say that I never thought of the idea of the art as being important. I fell in love with it, and that's what made us to buy it. What I did not understand that it was an important artist. I just liked the piece.
Well, that's a wonderful note. to end on. I think we'll move on to Anouchka. Thank you both. And I remember an early conversation that I had with Anouchka when I first met her, and really I met her within the context of her parents. And we talked a little bit about what it meant to grow up with such a collection, knowing in a way that it was going to be a public collection. And then I found out you were a writer, and that you were really thinking about the ways in which artists come to be and how to best support artists through your work. And to me, that is the ultimate testament of what your parents have built, that you continue that on in a different context and through a variety of different mediums.
That's
so
very
over to
kind.
you.
Thank you. Yeah, growing up was definitely an interesting, you were not, I think you're right with this idea of you just instinctually love something. I think you love your home. You don't realize the meaning of what they're choosing to surround yourself with, but that's the way you kind of operate out of care. And I think the demonstration of care, and also with our friend community, it's all the same thing. It's all the same vibe of caring for someone's creative act, or caring for a statement that is made that is controversial, or there's a long view of how this all feeds together. So yes, I think I feel grateful to have had a chance to figure things out, like figure out my voice over time, especially in connection to our family. And I think my brother as well would say the same thing. Emotional. I knew I would do this. Okay. So I think where I ended up going was out of a desire to create that community again. And that was totally a chance thing. Like it was not a plan at all. It was more circumstance. So it was the circumstance of someone finding land in the southern Okanagan and saying, I'd like to plant a vineyard here. So I've got 20 acres, what do you think? And there, on that land, there was a log house. And our family was to this guy, which was Henning. We thought, well, that's an interesting idea, but maybe we should actually do something with the house instead, because it's right there and there's no other issue. This land is really inspiring. Why don't we think about artists coming here? That seems so natural. And so that's how our project started in the Similkameen. And I would say it definitely is a reflection of transformative legacy, in the sense that we're looking at how artists on a very personal level can have the space to transform their thinking and their practice in a way that's not known in the moment, but in a lifetime will hopefully figure out, will play a role. So I think it's the long range view of things that really matters to me. And it's an absolute joy and a love to see artists in their studios for 2 weeks, for a month, for 2 months, however long they stay there. And I go out there every 2 months to check in. And it's an absolute, I would not have predicted this. I didn't know I would be doing this. I thought I'd be writing and working with art in some capacity, but not actually the process space, like working in a location very specific to a part of British Columbia that our family also has connection with as young people. We would often go camping and driving through the interior, and so it does feel a lot like of a respectful homage to our childhood. Okay, I have a presentation, but it's really more of a sense of introducing you to what the Similkameen Artist Residency is, and it's a process of, or it's a project that was based on creativity, connection, and collaboration. And we started with our very first employee about 2021 after we sort of brainstormed this idea of creating an artist residency. The word residency is kind of confusing because for many it seems like a venture that best serves artists as a subsidized experience. So artists don't need to pay, that they are brought in and they're given a subsidized few weeks, few months, whatever, in a communal setting. But we couldn't afford to do that. So we started slow, but we loved the idea of community. And we hired someone to help us spread the word. And then Henning ran right away and kind of created 5 studios in a basement and 4 bedrooms upstairs. And this house was intentionally designed in the mid-90s as a B&B, so it was perfect because it divided the house in half. And so we could, over time, find a long-term artist in resident, which we have now. We've had Ali Bischoff, who is originally, she was in Vancouver for a long time at ArtSpeak as their director of communications. And so she's been there for almost 3 years and has been a godsend. She is a nurturer of the artist community on site. And so that was really fortunate. The space was divided in half and could sponsor both the working artists on site and the ones that were coming in for a short term. And and then it was trying to convince ourselves this would fly. I mean, we had no idea. I think to this day, though, it is not a sustainable venture. It's actually quite expensive to do this. And we've decided the Freybe family is a great backer to this project. They and I say it's because it's not me. I do support on my own as well, but it really is their generosity to subsidize the fees. So it's as much as we can, we lower the fees to the very base level, and then but it's a hard push to make this fly. So we're hopeful we can go year to year. We don't know when the end date is, but we will accept it if it does come. In the meanwhile, we have kind of developed our mission, our vision, our values. We've aligned ourselves to be a nonprofit, so we're hoping that happens in the near future. And we're really about the sustainability of a creative space on a landscape that we want to leave untouched. So it kind of rubs a bit in indifference to the idea of a vineyard, and that we have a relationship with the local Indigenous community and other community members of Karamias-Coston. So this is located just outside of Karamias-Coston on the Crow's Nest Highway that runs into the southern Okanagan. And we're half an hour, 40 minutes from Penticton. And over time, we've developed a great relationship with Penticton and Kelowna, with the Alternator Center for Contemporary Art, with Penticton Art Gallery, with the Penticton District Community Art Council. And they've allowed us to create programming. So we now have an artist talk series, and we've had our first alumni exhibition at the Alternator. And I feel it's the community, just like any educational site or any collective site, when you have artists who walk through, they tend to support one another. So I love running into artists who've been there, and I think, and the idea of communicating, being friends with artists, I think it's much easier when you're not on the buying end, when you're just on a relational end. So I think it's much easier to befriend and to kind of stand alongside an artist as they work, rather than to think about myself being a consumer. So I definitely do support artists as a collector. I think I've found great joy in being beside them as they work. So where we are now is at a point of welcoming what comes in the years to follow. We're excited to launch. We have a sculpture chorale, so we're using our location. I'm not sure if it's come up in photographs. It was a former ranch, so there is an old stable, and there are about 5 artworks around that have been allowed by contract. We've asked the artists for their permission to let the work settle into the land. And it's not really a public site, but people can come and visit by request. And then we're seeing what other ventures come next. So it's a very much a project in evolution. And I love that we can hear this in the background. I love that it because it makes what happens in here part of the public, and I think that's important. Okay, well I guess I totally went off speech. All right. Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, they did good. They did. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Like you said, what did you say? That's it? I'm done? Okay.
Thank you, Anouchka. Can you all hear us okay? Are we good on volume? Okay. I do love our location in the middle of the city, and that, dialogue and protest is part of our everyday. I think it's actually crucial to, especially in this day and age, that dialogue is something that we live amongst, and that art and dialogue to me are essential partners. But Anouchka, I wanted to ask you, I was struck by your slideshow, how many images are of the outside of the land. And this is in kind of sharp contrast to the previous images that we've been showing of from Brigitte and Henning and Claudia. Can you tell us a little bit about the relationship to the land, how you're hoping artists in the residencies, if there is some expectation or thought in your values and pillars to thinking about the land, and how having the artist residency here has perhaps changed your relationship to the land, which you said is, from your childhood, a place you visited.
There isn't an expectation. I think what's noted right away when one applies as an artist is that it's set in a specific rugged landscape, and that anyone coming needs to be aware that it is very much an untouched natural setting, and to be comfortable with wildlife, to be comfortable with changing climate conditions, to be comfortable with something that is, I think, intended to be a stimulating space. The land. We ask artists to sign a waiver, which includes a statement of respect for the land. So the idea is not to pick up anything or to leave a trace, but that is modified. As artists, we definitely allow them to pick up things. It is more that we wanted there to be a disclaimer around respecting the things that are there. But artists, but almost all of them come with a practice that is based in material, a sense of a curiosity around natural materials, and I wouldn't say land art, so to speak, but I would say engagement through some narrative form, whether it's performance on the landscape, documenting the landscape, tracing themselves in some way in relationship to the landscape. So I would say almost every artist comes with that sensibility, because they've seen what we're about, and they're coming specifically for that. I would say it's very rare that an artist comes to just be in their studio. Yeah.
And I'm curious, because the way you describe the residency and how it has developed is that, in a way, it seemed quite intuitive, right? That it developed as you learned and over time. What have been some of the challenges for you?
I think the challenges were probably at the beginning, understanding how we could run the place. We didn't know, the idea of a long-term artist in residence was not quite shaped at the beginning. So we thought we needed some responsible person nearby that could, be called in case there was an accident, or be called in case the water wasn't working. But then, or maybe there was someone, just a tenant living there that could help. So those kinds of on-site responsibility shaping into actually an artist on site being able to create a vibe or a point of community. Ali right now is the person who creates community there. So that was a challenge, and also understanding. Oh, yeah.
The flickers.
Yeah, it's wildlife that is sometimes a challenge. We have flickers. It's a log house. The flickers definitely cause trouble. Yeah. But, we love them. It's just that they're creating holes everywhere. Yeah. And I think also the governance issue around the project, and legal ramifications and concerns around just, is this a safe place? We really needed to work through that, and great advice and great counsel from people on the Griffin Arts Projects team, and members of the community. Landon McKenzie, as an artist, has been on our advisory board it's a committee, not a board, since the beginning, and adds a very lively voice to how we can continue to grow. So I think those are those are some main things that we've encountered. Yeah.
So what I might do now is open up conversation to everyone, and I know that you were each asked to prepare a question for each other, but maybe I'll get things started, because the word community has come up a lot today. And, number one, the community that we find ourselves here with, that we're all together, that we all know one another, and we've been calling each other out in terms of who's in the audience, and longtime community of folks that have been here to support the folks on stage. But each one of you talked about community in your collecting journey, as in the case with Claudia and Henning and Brigitte, and then also you, Anouchka, you talk about the importance of community with the artist residency. I would love to just talk a little bit more about community and why that has been so important to each one of you in what you've just talked about and presented. I'll call on you if you don't jump in. But Anouchka, it looks like you want to answer.
Okay, I'll just start.
Oh, we should.
I think it just wouldn't happen without the community. It's validation, but it's also that's where everyone crosses over. It's the meeting point of the artists, the stakeholders, the locals, the suppliers. It's the mix, and I think it just doesn't make sense to do something of this nature that isn't intended to be about a kind of legacy, but it's also a kind of respect and recognition for artistic communities. And again, the community word, but it can't happen in isolation, or why would you want it to? I am definitely an introvert, so 100% love isolation, but I realized through this project that it's just so much more rewarding to share your ups and downs with someone and with a community that is as invested as you are. And so I find it's the investment level of community. They're shared different voices, but an aligned intention.
Actually, one way that the word community can be applied and is connected to Griffin art projects, people that collect things, they live in their own world, and others almost never see that world. And so for us to have Griffin art projects where the director puts shows together where she draws pieces from collections, where people are able to see what others live with, where they normally might not see that, where they actually possibly get a little bit of confidence that they might go out on a limb with buying a piece of art because there's such unusual pieces that are shown at the Griffin. Well, if people can live with that, maybe I can too. So to learn from what others have done and what they've appreciated being part of, being involved with, the community impact of the Griffin really has been at the core of what we're doing, except we've never thought of the word community. We just thought of the word sharing and learning. It's been an amazing ride to see what some people have lived with and have enjoyed living with. And here I should mention, so often in art, you hear people saying, is this a smart investment? And one should never think of investment. If you're so lucky, 1 in a million, great. But you should enjoy living with the art. So here, seeing what is out there, what people are living with and enjoying living with, that is the most important part of owning art, of living with art. Forget the investment. That really doesn't matter. It's like the journey in life. The goal is not important, the journey is. So living with art is an amazing journey, and we've been so happy to share this with others and to see what others are living with. It's been an amazing.
What about you, Claudia? What does community mean in your collecting journey?
What's gone through my mind is the way Anouchka and Henning have spoken. But something has happened in the last little while, and I think it has to do with aging. And what do I want to say? And I'm not sure that someone here has said it to me privately, not about aging, but that actually you wonder about your relevance. So I'm at a point where I feel supported by those of you that I know in the audience and those of you who came out that I don't know. But I'm no longer convinced that what I do, and I'm really not putting myself down. That's my whole thing about worrying about the next generations.
I couldn't agree more.
Is that I'm worried.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, I know I was relevant, that Andrew and I were relevant X times ago.
Yeah.
The question is, are people like me still relevant? And I mean, sure, you're my community, but do you know I can go to an art school here in Vancouver or go to UBC and nobody knows who the hell I am. And that's fine.
That's okay.
But it but it means that there was that whole idea of legacy means that it doesn't get transferred. My interest is in actually ongoing histories, and I know history is a slippery thing. Anyway, that's enough. I think relevance changes as you age.
But I would say your legacy, Claudia, is that collection of 400 plus photographs that you have given to Vancouver.
Sure.
Okay.
Well, maybe on that note, I have a question around advice for collectors, and I know there's a lot of collectors in the room, and maybe those who hope to be collectors someday, whatever that word means. But do you have any advice?
Well, we never had, not once had we had a advice from a arts advisor, never.
Consultant.
We don't believe in that. We believe in ourselves, having an eye and having, well, I don't know if I have an eye, but
You do.
I believe in myself, that I do the choice which I want to live with. That's the main thing. That I hesitate to acquire art and not hang it up. We have lots of pieces which we haven't seen for many years, and the luck was with that show here, we put them up in our house and looked at the art 50 years ago, which we bought. And sometimes I said, oh, did we really buy that? That it was no longer in my mind. I don't believe in advisors. I listened in...
What she's sort of saying that we occasionally make mistakes.
Yeah.
One should not be concerned if you buy something and 3 years later you decide maybe you didn't care for that much after all. We all make some mistakes, and there's nothing wrong with that. The passion doesn't go away. You move on. So...
I'm not knocking art advisors, for heaven's sakes. People who can live, can get enjoyment out of their advice. That's important. But we never thought of that. It never occurred to us. We talked to the dealers, and at the arts fair, and at museums visits, at gallery visits, we talk to them. And by that you make up your own mind, your own relationship to art. But an art advisor may be a very possible road to take if you want to start a collection, and if you are keen on doing it big.
Okay.
I thought the question was slightly different. I agree in that much, but I thought in terms of all of you out there, what I didn't say in my notes, which I did have, was we were small.
Yeah.
We didn't have a lot of money. We were lucky to do it then. So it would be, at some level, our collecting has to do with our age and having a property and a house, whereas my grandchildren, even if I left them a bunch of money, they're not going to be able to do that. And so my concern is, how do you, as a younger person, how do you support this city? And also, there are a lot of people that I know who collect in a very modest, small way according to their budget, and I applaud that. I'm not saying whether it ends up as a legacy gift or not. One of the things that I didn't mention is that I'm quite interested in is rather than buying art, I'm trying to find institutions in Vancouver and sometimes elsewhere where I can actually give money. It's not a lot of money, maybe it's $20,000, $25,000, but actually, if you're a small organization, it can help you for a year, and that was what you were talking about, is that you're on the cusp of, can you do this or can't you do that? Anyway, I think we have to also start thinking a little more. Somebody said here something about the art environment or the ecosystem of the art. I think it's really changed since the three of us were doing stuff, and I have no advice about that. I don't take advice, and I'm not going to give it. Anyway.
We encouraged all of you to prepare questions for each other, so maybe if we have a few minutes, if you're dying to ask something that wasn't covered of each other, I encourage you to. I think you have your notes there, Claudia. Do you want to go?
I do. But actually, I had a really nice one. I had a really nice question for Anouchka, but her whole presentation answered it, which had to do with how did she see running the Similkameen artist residency? Did she see it? How did she see it connected? Was it her and her children and husband's legacy? Was it connected to the Griffin? Or was it connected to the Freybe family? And she kind of answered it by she runs it, she's excited about it, and it may be a little, it may be like this, you know that thing? So, but I admire the Griffin that you guys have done that, and I admire that. I'm sorry about the vineyard, but but I admire that you handed that over to Anouchka. What I was going to ask Brigitte...
I didn't hand it over.
You didn't? She stole it?
He took it.
Oh, good for her.
It's
I like an assertive kid.
For me, it was a lemon, and she made lemonade out of it.
That's a bad lie. Yeah. So my question to Brigitte and Henning is, do you look for specific artists and or do you look for specific works? Because you travel a lot more than Andrew and I did. And I hope I said that we did a lot of non-traveling like them, and we combed through auction catalogs as well as stuff from here. So specific artists. I mean, you went after Julie Murray too when she would, but you knew her from before.
Yeah.
And you went out. It's not fair. And did you go after specific works?
Well, obviously, I wanted to go for a cloud piece by Taziladin. I searched for a cloud piece, but the first work we had from her was where Bruce helped me with the video from the Magpies. That I actually wanted the video where she took the life of Mario Merz, but it was gone.
I thought you had that.
No, we wanted, Bruce helped, but that was gone. And then we settled on we not settled. I never settle on anything. I liked the conversation of birds through a window in her studio, which we could not change in size because the studio window was that big, and that had to be. She had a very concise feeling for her work. I set out for those pieces, but the Rauschenberg...
But yes, she wanted a Moretto, by the way. She really did.
I remember this story.
It was only that big, and it was $2 million. And I said, no, this is not going to work. We ended up with a print. So,
A great print.
yes.
We have 4 prints.
Lynn, are we opening up to questions from the
Yeah,
audience?
sure.
Is that what we're doing? Okay, so I think we have about 5 minutes left. Please raise your hand. Are there mics? Yes, Lynn has a mic. We welcome any and all questions.
Oh, hi. Thank you very much. That was a great talk on especially the community. I just wanted to ask, I'm sorry, I forgot your first name, that is the artist residency, do you also kind of have sort of a grant type of, for people that want to come into the program? I mean, there's so many grants out there. Have you thought of that for or maybe the person applying could maybe...
Exactly. It's a good question, and we definitely support. We know exactly where to point a finger, a direction, give directional advice for grants. We can't yet apply for grants ourselves, like an operational grant or a special project grant, because we don't have our status yet or a designation as a nonprofit or as a charitable organization. But exactly that we do recommend. And then I think in our structure, we've also kind of created now precise wording around if an artist requires support, or if there's an extra need, that we'll lower the price, or it's not a grant, but it indicates an awareness of understanding every artist's situation is different. So yeah, the grants would be helpful, yeah.
I'm really interested in your residency program, but I'm just wondering, I didn't realize you were so close to Coston. My father lives in Coston.
No way.
Yeah.
Oh.
But I was just wondering if it was exclusively for visual artists, or is it also open for literary arts, for writers who are writing about visual art?
I should have mentioned,
books?
I kind of brushed over that part. Yes, absolutely. It's like creative practitioners, creative content creators. There was a phrase that we had, but we couldn't quite find the right one. Artists, writers, performers. We've had musicians, dancers. And so it's really any art form. The only limitation we have is sound, because we're semi-private studios. So if you are a musician, it has to be a little bit more of a practice that is either very time-based. There are certain hours of the day where you do your work. No metal work, no heavy metal. No, and unfortunately, no pottery, no ceramics, which we'd love to do. It would be perfect, but we haven't gone that far to get the license. So.
And are they paid residencies, or do the artists have to find their own funding?
So far, it's finding own funding. We try to accommodate situations as much as we can, but it is a fee. But we're all about accessibility, but there is a fee involved right now. Hopefully, one day.
Oh, I see. So it's not a residency where the artist is paid.
Yeah.
It's where the
so
artist
it's application
has to pay.
kind of like it's a live work situation. We have everything you need, but you do have to pay. Very modest. If you put all the numbers together, it's pretty good. But many artists still can't afford it. So it's not the way we'd love it to be. But that is the case. Yeah.
Thanks.
So I think we have time for maybe one more question. I see a couple hands in the back.
I'm good. I'm the runner.
Oh, Lynn is good.
Hi. Thank you so much. So I have a question. My grandfather was an artist, and he was quite reclusive and private, and wasn't very much into sharing his collection until just before he passed. So I'm just trying to figure out if you guys might have any recommendations on how to share, because we have thousands of works, hundreds to thousands of works that, from paperworks to sculptures to everything that we want to be able to share with people, and we're not quite sure how to go about this, if we should just keep submitting to galleries, or we should be doing open houses where, we have the art, or... Yeah.
Maybe Lisa can answer that.
That's a difficult question. That's a difficult question.
It's almost an impossible question to give you a nice answer to. Because having worked with photographs, and none of those people are here, they end up with huge inventories and slides that they have never cataloged, and I don't know what's going to happen. But in case of your grandfather, as a recluse, the only thing, and maybe Bruce can help me out here, the only thing I can think of was the Yang family, the daughters, tried to take over Wayne's. I mean, he had a lot, and he's just had a big show in New York. But they had to inventory, and he was well known. And the problem has to do with what do you do with someone who runs below the radar? And the answer is I have no idea. I'm sorry to say that, and that I could only come up quickly with Wayne Yang, and his daughters basically took over the cataloging and doing everything. But I can't think of anybody else like that. Sorry.
Well, we could continue the conversation, or we will continue the conversation over the reception, which is just next door. But first, I want to give all of our panelists a hearty round of applause. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Eva.
And thank you all for sharing the really insightful insights today. And like Eva said, I also remember visiting Brigitte and Henning's home and saw the letters from the artists expressing gratitude. And their generosity really extend far beyond their place, touch the wider communities. And along with Claudia and Andrew, their support has been crucial for the development of the gallery's collection, and we're really grateful. And also seeing that spirit sort of continues forwards through Anouchka's initiative, which foster emerging voices and nurture artistic talents for the futures. Today's program wouldn't have been possible without the wonderful partner and team from the Griffin Arts Projects and CSV, and to my colleagues in programs, building services, AV, communication, and curatorials, who helps create a space where meaningful connections can happen. Art carries our stories, dreams, and humanity. It's fragile, yet resilient. It provokes, inspires, and unites us, but it cannot flourish on its own, like what everyone shares today. Our cultural ecosystems demand on all of us, visiting exhibitions, attending events, supporting artists, bring a friend, make a donation, or simply becomes a member. Every act helps keep this ecosystem vibrant. And together we can ensure that arts community can continue to move, connect, and transform lives. And before we close, a reminder, like Eva mentions, that Postcard from the Heart will be up for viewing for just one more week. And also next Thursday, we are opening, we'll be opening Eliant Tamio Wakayama's, highlighting his powerful documentation of social justice movement and countercultures of the 1960s and 70s. And on October 8th, our guest curator, Paul Wang, will discuss Tamio's work at the Art Form series at Emily Carr alongside the launch of Tamio's memoir. So further details are on the website. And thank you once again for being part of today's panel, and we invite you to continue the conversation next door. Thanks.